What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Eagles post-game recap. I'm Alex Miller, joined always by Robert Cessna. Back in the office. It's been a long day. A&M beat Utah State 44-22. Is that a scoregami? That's kind of an interesting score.
Well, considering last week the score was somewhat, 42-24. 42-24. So, first thing I thought, wow, pretty close.
Pretty close. Cease, biggest takeaway from A&M from today?
Well, obviously, you hope the injuries to Zune and Reed, they said they don't expect them to be anything. It would appear that way. The run defense, pretty much back. Running game, pretty much back. Hard to say with Utah State as far as the running defense being back, because I just don't know how good. And I know everybody says, oh, they got Davis, they got these guys, but you saw their lineman versus A&M line. Bottom line is, for me, is their passing game continues to be very impressive with the weapons they have. If they can keep doing that against next week, Notre Dame against Power 4 conference, can they get that many people open? That's what I'm waiting to see, because for two games, and actually, you touched on this, Marcel Reed wasn't really 100% accurate today. He could have easily had 5 or 6 more completions. That being said, he was like 19 to 28, so you can't it's hard to be nitpicky, but they didn't play great.
Yeah, and that's probably a good thing for A&M, though, is they played pretty well, but you're still nitpicky in a sense of, him and Concepcion, the timing was a little off.
Mm-hmm.
But then they come back the next drive and he completes 6 straight passes for 60 yards and gets a touchdown pass to KC. One thing that I'm sure about is that Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver, they are the real deal. Craver had another 100-yard game, and Elko described the vertical passing game as a little choppy today. He said the run game was choppy last week. He said the passing game was choppy this week. So I asked him. I said, "Hey, you said one's choppy each week. How do you find some consistency?" And he said, "Well, it's about finding rhythm as the season goes on." But he then took a second to say, "Hey, but don't forget, A&M's had a 100-yard receiver in back-to-back weeks, and KC's right behind him with 2 70-plus yard games. A&M hadn't seen that in quite a while, and he makes a good point that even when things don't seem as great as they are, A&M is still producing at a better clip in the passing game than they have in recent seasons."
They have, but I'm still going to go with the asterisk. I'm waiting until they play a Power 4 conference team or
totally
a Notre
fair.
Dame.
Totally
fair.
That
they pass for more than 250 and just get one of those guys close to 100, because their numbers have not proven. Last week at Concepcion, last year, I think it was like 9.7 average in the ACC. Now, sometimes you got to remember they might not have the offensive line or the running back or the quarterback. Maybe that's why KC Concepcion came here and goes, hey, I could be a star at A&M. I'm wasting my talent at NC State. So we'll wait and see, but you can't complain thus far. But you're right. I'm being nitpicky in my grades and my column tomorrow, because you can't miss an extra point. You can't have these penalties. You can't. And they only had a few penalties, but they were stupid penalties. And like you said, it's something from the work on. There's no problem. Let's be honest. I feel if UTSA played Utah State at Kyle Field this week, UTSA would win by 25 points.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. At least at the high school level, coaches talk about the biggest improvement is from week 1 to week 2. And I'm sure something of that nature can be said at the college level still. A&M made a lot of improvement this week, in my opinion. And they continue to build on good things like the passing game, the return game. But to your point, A&M's got a long way to go. And that's not a bad thing. It's only week 2. You don't want to be crescendoing after the Utah State game. But A&M's going to have to figure some of these things out pretty quick, because you're not going to be able to get away with the extra points missed and the penalties that they have on the third downs that extend the drive when you're trying to stop Notre Dame on the road.
because to me, the number one thing you touch on, the road. They haven't been on the road yet this year. And we all know when A&M goes on the road, they lose to ranked teams. And they haven't won since Auburn in 2017 or 18.
14, yeah.
Whatever, you're right, a year after Johnny. But the bottom line is they've shown all these improvements. Can they do it next week? You know, I don't expect them to go in there and pass for 330 yards. I don't expect them to hang 42, but I think they can go in there and win that game. They'll be the underdog, but they're maybe going to have to clean up some things that they were able to get away with in these first two games and really just outscore the opponents. But, you know, that's the beauty of it. If you're 2-0, there's going to be a lot of 2-0 teams. And a lot of them are saying, well, we need to get better. That's true, but you'd rather get better at 2-0 instead of 0-2.
Well, and let's be honest, A&M hadn't been 2-0 in a long time. I was a freshman in college when they were 2-0 the last time. Now, granted, you should be 2-0. If they weren't 2-0, we'd be having a much different conversation.
Yeah.
But the fact remains, that is not something that has been commonplace at this program in recent years.
Yeah, you hitch on a couple of things. They've always had a tough non-conference game. You think about Clemson and you know, some of those other teams that they were able to play.
They lost to Miami,
Notre Dame last year. So
Appalachian State.
Yeah, those big teams. You know, when you get into the Sun Belt and Conference useless, you got to be careful. But yeah, we can laugh because they are 2-0, and when things are going well. But I like, for the most part, Marcel Reed's decisions to run or pass again. His passing execution left a little to be desired, and I know it wasn't because Utah State's that good. That was just him and his receivers. And once again, hey, Concepcion Craver are new guys, so I can get that. He twitched right. Maybe Reed thought he's going to twitch left, and that could just throw a play off or one step. You got to go. He might say you got to go one step deeper on that or one step closer. Yeah, so we don't know, but you're right. Knowing Elko, they'll have a lot to work on this week.
Well, we'll close with this. You're starting to work on your grades now. What would you grade A&M's overall performance today?
Yeah, I probably would go with a lot of the B- to C pluses because I just thought they should have been better in certain areas. It's hard, like I said, to be nitpicky, but you got to be when you have the penalties. They were only 5 for that offense is prolific, 500 some yards, but they're only 5 for 13 in third downs and 1 for 3 in fourth downs. Those are your money downs, and that they didn't cash out.
They did not. Well, hey, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the post-game recap. Be sure to check all of our coverage from A&M's win over Utah State at theeagle.com, and hopefully my voice is a little better this next week when we preview A&M against Notre Dame.
Okay.
All right, that'll do it. We'll see you next time.